Rain by Rose Quill. Rain pelted down, soaking the quad and what few students were out late. It had started as a rough thunderstorm, but had since calmed itself to a firm shower. I still heard the distant rumble of thunder, but I never saw any more flashes of lightning. I sat in the windowsill of my window, gazing out. A particularly loud crack of thunder earlier had woke me up, but not my sleeping girlfriend. I had gotten up and wandered to the window, and now found myself lost in thought. I glanced back at the sleeping form on one of the two beds in the room. Twilight was fast asleep still, an arm thrown up over her head, and her hair in a disarray. Her clothes were carefully folded and set to the side, easily found and out of the way. The other bed was unmade and vacant. Rainbow had been unusually accommodating when Twilight had popped through the portal, volunteering that she'd crash at Fluttershy's for a night or two. Ordinarily, she'd stick around and spend time with me and the princess. The two had been spending more time together as of late too. I'd have to ask Rarity what the story was. She was rooming with Fluttershy at the moment, so if anyone knew what was going on, she would. If there was gossip to be found, she could smell it from across town. I returned my gaze out the window. There's something almost therapeutic about rain. Something that just made me feel at peace while watching it. I had always loved it, even before the girl in my bed had come after me that handful of years ago. I loved its refreshing smell, the smell of the wet earth, and the gentle sound of it falling to the ground from the sky. There were times that I was sure it would wash the world clean. I hoped it would have washed my sins away the times I wasn't content to just watch it. Walking in the rain was a good way to let my thoughts tumble without looking like I was staring into space. And I had more than enough to think about tonight. When Twilight had arrived, she had offered me a post of Archmage, a position she'd created to free up her free time and duties. She'd offered it to both Starlight and myself, and I have to admit that I was legitimately interested. Returning to the world I had been born to, and having a position of some minor authority, it was a lot to take in, and I was sorely tempted. But right behind it was other thoughts. The econ midterm on Monday, the unfinished term paper stacked on my desk, edges neatly aligned from a slightly neurotic girlfriend's tidying spree. Several textbooks lay open next to them, reminding me of a biology assessment I had finished just before Twilight had arrived. Tempting as her offer was, I couldn't help but be reminded of the work I had put into this world, not to mention the bills I now had. Scholarships had paid for a large amount of my tuition, but I still had to bust my flank to pay the remainder, mostly on housing. Double shifts on the weekends and whatever hours I could manage helping Applejack out at the farm. But going home, I wouldn't have the same problems. A position on any of the princess's retinue included a stipend for basic expenses. And, seeing as how I was dating Twilight, housing was all but a sure thing. I would also be able to resume studies that I had left behind when I fled Equestria in the past. With the portal open, I wouldn't even be leaving my friends behind, though plans would have to be made a bit more in advance since I wouldn't be able to just drop things for coffee. Going back seemed to be the best choice. But was that because I just wanted to be with Twilight? Or was it that it was the best choice? The rain picked up and I returned my gaze outward. In the reflection in the watered glass, I saw my clock, showing the time as just after 3. I sighed and ran my hand through my hair. Why was it always the late hours that made me think? I leaned forward and rested my head against the cool glass, eyes closing as I breathed a heavy sigh. I heard a rustling and sat up, soon wrapped up by a pair of arms and a light kiss on the base of my neck. "You're up late," Twilight whispered into my ear. I reached up and took hold of her wrists, turning to face her. "I have a lot on my mind," I whispered. Rain always makes me overly introspective. "Anything I can help with?" she asked as she sat across from me, her complexion complemented by the colour of the light rain. I shook my head. "Not particularly. I have to decide on your offer, and there's a lot of things that you have to do first if I accept." She glanced around the room and nodded. "Your class is here and our friends." I nodded. "It's a lot of paperwork to officially withdraw from school. I'm more worried about the costs than anything. And I also promised Applejack I'd help with the cider season, not to mention I'm lab partners with Pinky in chemistry." I still can't believe that she wants to be a doctor. Twilight ran her hand through her sleep-tousled hair, wincing at a knot. I didn't think she'd have the attention span for it. Neither did the rest of us. But she's scary focused when she needs to be. I looked out the window again. "Coming home would be an amazing thing, Twily. It really would. And not just for the position you offered me. It's just, right now..." She silenced me with fingers on my lips, then leaned forward and rested her forehead against mine. "For you, it's a standing offer, even if I have to wait another year or 2. I smiled. "I'm only studying for an interdisciplinary degree, Twilight. I'll be done at the end of this term." She blinked. "Isn't human college generally 4 years?" I nodded. "But if you add in a few summer courses, you can shave some time off the ends." She nodded. "I think I can wait another couple weeks then." She then grinned. "And I can't wait to see you in your cap and gown." I couldn't stop the chuckle. She grabbed my hands and pulled me to my feet, the old tea I had loaned her dangling around her slim legs. "But it's not a good idea to make choices when sleep deprived. So how about we get some rest and talk it through in the morning?" At least Rainbow isn't here to keep us awake of her snoring. I feel sorry for Rarity and Fluttershy. Why? She's staying there tonight. Twilight giggled. "Oh, I wouldn't worry too much about Rarity losing sleep. She's over at Applejack's tonight. She said she wanted to give those two privacy for the holiday." I blinked. "How do you know?" "Oh, I ran into her at the doors and chatted for a few minutes. Apparently, Fluttershy and Dash started dating last month." I gawked. She smiled and slipped under the blankets on my bed, the shirt hiking up her legs a little as she did. "Are you coming or what?" I shook my head and crawled in after her, and felt her arms around me as sleep welcomed me back. "Now," she whispered in my ear, "tomorrow is Hearts and Hooves Day. Does this world have any special traditions?" I smiled and kissed her wrist. You'll just have to wait and see.